Nice to see the town seal back there.
It looks very official.
Makes Tom sit almost like on a throne, doesn't it? Seems like
Hmm.
he's
With
in
his
a
plans
seat.
out in front of him. Wish that I had all those plans in front of me.
We are live streaming and recording. Would you like me to? The August 27, 2020 meeting of the Yarmouth Zoning Board of Appeals is about to convene. As a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of the coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public, and this meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Kathy Williams. I'm the town planner, will be serving as moderator for this virtual meeting. I will now turn it over to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you. My name is Stephen DeYoung. I'm the chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I will begin by taking a roll call of other members present to assure that we have a quorum. And Sean Igo, you're here?
Present.
Thank you. Dick Martin, are you here?
Here.
And Tom Nicanello, are you here?
Present.
Dick Neitz, are you here?
I am here.
And with myself present, that gives us a full board of 5 members and alternates. So yes, we do have a quorum. I will now call the meeting to order, and I ask that the moderator explain how the remote participation will work this evening.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Yarmouth Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted via remote participation. Although no in-person attendance will be permitted, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings. Persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching via this virtual meeting or the live feed on the Town of Yarmouth YouTube channel. You may also listen to the meeting by dialing into the phone number provided on the notice of meeting. The recording of the meeting will also be available on the Town of Yarmouth YouTube channel for future viewing. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological difficulties we may have. For all meetings, all audience participants will enter the virtual meeting muted. Participants will be unmuted when called upon to speak by the chair or moderator. All votes must be roll call votes. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noise. Do not use speakerphone or Bluetooth devices when speaking. For applicants and presenters, applicants can use the raise hand button or press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair. The moderator will unmute applicants when they are called upon to speak during their portion of the agenda. Applications or presentations provided by the applicant will be displayed in the virtual meeting by the moderator in advance by the moderator. Or, if pre-approved for larger projects, temporary panelist capabilities will be given to the presenters to share their screens while giving their presentations. All presenters and speakers need to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation when speaking. For public hearings, during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment, the chair will ask who in the audience has any public comments or questions. Members of the public may speak by selecting the raise hand button or pressing *9 on their phone and waiting for the chair to call on them to speak. As an alternative to making comments via online audio or phone, you may also submit comments to the moderator via the virtual meeting chat function. To do this, click on the chat icon and type your message. When prompted, the moderator will read comments and questions into the record. Members of the public recognized by the chair are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record and then provide their comment. Prior to concluding opportunities for public comment, the chair will ask one last time if anyone wishes to speak or give additional comment. I will now hand the meeting back over to the board.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moderator. And we have 2 matters on our agenda this evening, this August 27th, 2020. And our regularly scheduled meeting. We start with petition number 4851, that of Marilyn and Jason Bernardo of 93 Captain Bacon Road, South Yarmouth, Massachusetts. This petition is concerning property located in zoning district R40. This evening, our applicants seek a special permit under zoning bylaw 104.3.2, subparagraph 2, to raise and replace the existing porch and garage, increasing the height and the required setback. Our petition is here. I'm not seeing them.
My understanding is George Davis is here representing them. I'm going to allow him to speak.
Good enough.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have you both on the phone and on my computer. I'm gonna hang up my phone because see if this, hopefully I don't lose you. Am I still there?
You're still here.
Okay, great. So again, I'm sorry, my name is George Davis. I'm here on behalf of the Bernardos, seeking a special permit to, well, as you said, to raise and replace this this garage and porch, and would like to rebuild it on near the same footprint. The issue is that the right side of the property, the existing garage is within the setback area. We are proposing that we build the garage back in roughly the same place, except that we're going to be moving it further away from the setback area, improving that condition. But we are turning that, is becoming from an eave wall to a gable end. So technically, we're increasing the height within a setback area. Just hopefully you've got the plans, and if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them for you.
Good, thank you very much. You wouldn't be able to turn on your camera since you're on your computer now, would you?
I'd love to. I can't figure out how to do it, even though I've used Zoom before. My camera usually comes on automatically, so it's for some reason.
I need to promote him to a panelist in order to do that, Steve.
All right.
Well, I can do that.
Yes, please.
Aha.
Where are you? I'm just not seeing you.
Lower right-hand corner for the video.
Yeah, it's not coming up on my screen, but that's okay. Mr. Igo, do you have any questions of Mr. Davis?
Yes, good evening. When you say you're increasing the height, what is the existing height and what would be the proposed height?
Let's see, the existing height at that point is probably, at that point, it's probably 7 feet maybe, because it's a low eave wall. Do you have the plans in front of you, Mr. Igo?
Unfortunately, I don't, so I'm,
Would you
Okay.
like me to share my screen and show some
yeah, that'd be
photos?
great.
That would be great.
Yeah,
Give it a try.
Okay.
okay.
This is the site plan. Would you like to see the elevations or the site plan?
The elevations right now, please. Okay. So, the increase in height on the garage is what we're talking about?
Yes, on the right, you can see on that first page, the existing front, it has that sort of salt boxy look, you know, where
Yeah.
that eave wall is very low.
Mm-hmm,
So that porch and that garage is being demoed completely.
okay,
And I think if you go to sheet 3, page 3 there,
okay,
there you have the lower left corner is that right side elevation. You can see that we're turning a gable there.
I see, yeah,
The new height on that, I'm scaling off my little plan here at my office, and it looks to be about 13 and a half feet or so, 14 at the most,
that's from the ground,
to the peak.
or top, from what, top of, foundation?
No, I took that from what I'm estimating to be the grade, which
Oh,
is,
from the grade, okay,
yeah,
all right.
which in that area is pretty close. So there's a pretty flat lot, pretty.
And so, and so you're not increasing the nonconformity with the setback, you're actually decreasing it, you're bringing the building in a little bit?
That's correct.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you, George.
Thank you. Mr. Needs, please.
I think I'm okay. Thank you. That was one of the questions I had too, was the elevation. And as long as the setback is increased and the elevation is up a little bit, I can't see that would be a major issue since it's, you know, still half of what the allowed height restriction is.
Okay. And Mr. Martin, your thoughts or questions?
Yeah. No, I would just concur that there's no large change here. It's becoming more conforming in terms of the sideline setback. And actually, I think it looks better in terms of how it's going to come out looking, and is still at a relatively low elevation. So I have no questions. Yeah.
Very good. And Mr. Nicanello, any questions about petitioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, the 1 foot 11 inches is fine, and the structural layout is much more Cape Coddy, and I like it very much. Thank you. Good job, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Well, that comes to me then, Mr. Davis. And Mr. Davis, I want to say, always good to see you before our board. I do have a question, though, if you could help me, please. The existing setback is to the, which compass direction? If we could get the site plan up, perhaps that would help.
It's mostly to the south.
All right, and what is the existing right now setback?
Existing is 16.1 feet.
Is there a,
And the proposed,
the proposed will be,
18.
I'm sorry,
18 feet.
18 even?
Yes.
18,
All right. Well, boy, you're doing a good job getting there, aren't you? Huh? I have no other questions. I don't believe we've received any correspondence on this, so I have nothing to read into the record unless Ms. Clark is aware of something that I've overlooked. So I'm going to invite anybody in our audience who may wish to speak to identify yourself to our moderator, please, so that we can hear what you have to say. And perhaps we could take this site plan down. There we go.
No one has their hand raised, and there's no one who sent me anything through the chat box.
So again, I probably should have asked first, does anyone want to speak in favor? And we're seeing none. Does anybody want to speak in opposition to this petition? Please let our moderator know.
I see no one.
We see no one. So therefore, we close it to the public commentary on this petition. We open it up to board discussion and deliberations. Let's go backwards if we could. Mr. Nicanelli, your thought?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a wonderful plan. It's going to enhance the neighborhood and give the owners a little more space. I'm very much for it. Thank you.
Mr. Neitz, or Mr. Martin, I guess, who's next in line.
Yep, I think it's a very easy one, actually, and they're not asking for practically anything, and what they're asking for is, in my estimation, more conforming than not. Adding a little bit to the height of the garage, I think, is a good thing. So no problems.
Thank you. I apologize to all if you can hear one of my dogs barking in the background. Mr. Neitz.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no problems with this at all, and I think it's a good plan and just a minor difference from what was there and improving the sideline requirement. So I think it's certainly a go for me.
How about you, Mr. Igo? Any thoughts on the issue?
I agree with the board. I think it's actually an improvement. I think the house is going to look better. They're obviously decreasing a nonconformity. I do believe they meet the criteria of the bylaw. Certainly won't be substantially more detriment, cause any undue nuisance, hazard of congestion, or have any adverse effect to the zoning district of the town. So again, I would certainly support it, and I would urge the board to support it as well.
There's nothing I can say that hasn't been said, and I fully support this petition. Thank you, Mr. Igo, for reading in the required findings we have to make. So with that, the board prepared, somebody prepared to make a motion?
I'd be prepared
I would
to.
move-
Go ahead, Dick.
Mr. Martin, you're moving to
Uh,
approve
yeah.
the petition
To approve the petition as requested,
and without condition.
without any conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Mr. Neitz, thank you. All those in favor of the motion, does anyone wish to have discussion on that motion before proceeding to a vote? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Oh,
Aye.
that's right, too. We gotta do the roll call. I see 2 or 3 heads back there going, no, Mr. DeYoung, stop. All right, so we'll start with Mr. Igo.
Aye.
And we'll go to Mr. Nicanello, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, aye.
Mr. Neitz,
aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
and my vote is an aye. Therefore, it carries unanimously. Please, sir, be aware and tell your clients that a decision will be drafted. That decision will be filed with the town clerk's office 14 days must have, 14 days, 20 days must elapse. It's been a long day. You know? This is about the 7th or 8th hour I've been on one of these meetings. So it's 20 days must elapse before the special permit is considered final. And you then need to bring it to the Registry of Deeds, record it, and return proof of recordation back to Ms. Clark. Thank you.
Thank you very
I
much.
think
I appreciate it.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Thank you, George. We can now see you finally.
Yes, thank you. Nice to see you all, and I'll see you next time.
You
Great.
too, George.
Good.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.
That brings us to our next matter, and that is the continued petition from August 13, 2020, petition number 4850, Great Island Plaza LLC with a street address of 590 to 600 and 602 Route 28, otherwise known as Main Street. That's a corner lot that also has a boundary on 12 Winslow Gray Road in West Yarmouth. This property is in a B2 zoning district, and our applicant seeks a special permit under zoning bylaw 301.2 and 301.4 for relief from various design criteria pertaining to parking, landscaping, and buffer area requirements as it relates to the proposed development of this property. And again, for those at home, this is a continued hearing from August 13, 2020. Good evening, and who's appearing for the petitioner this evening, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is Jeannie Campus from Nutter, McLennan and Fish. I think our whole team is here. Haya Rosenberg, who is the manager of Great Island Plaza LLC. Brian Yergatian, who's the project engineer from BSC Group. Jan Vitak from Tatra Builders, and Robert Ciavara. Hopefully we'll be quicker than last time. You know, we're back before you tonight with revised plans. We believe these plans incorporate all the comments made by the board at the last hearing. While they're described in detail in our filing, our updated filing, I thought I'd briefly go over the changes today for you guys. The project remains the same, essentially. There are 3 main changes, and those are: 1, the scope of work to be performed in phase 1 is now increased, and the scope of work to be performed in phase 2 has decreased. We have increased the number of plantings and revised, including some plantings that the board had recommended the last time. And we've also altered the trigger for phase 2. So first, what we've done, I think this was the most important concern raised by the board at the last hearing, was the fact that the buffer along Route 28 in front of the main building was to originally be done in phase 2. That is now proposed to be done in phase 1. And not only just the landscape buffer, but also the full reduction in the parking. We are moving all parking to the rear except for 7 parallel spaces in the front of the main building and 4 spaces in front of the post office building. We're also including the fully defined access area around the front of the main building, which was requested by the fire department. And we're doing the expanded sidewalk area in front of the main building in front of those units. That's now all part of phase 1, not phase 2. So that results in a fully landscape buffer area along both roads, Winslow Gray Road and Route 28 from the get-go. You'll have the fully landscape buffer. This will enhance the site, or enhance the curb appeal of this site for sure. The second thing we're doing is we're increasing the number of plants. You can see from the revised landscape plan we provided that we've added a total of 66 boxwood shrubs. They're called Nordic inkberry hollies. They're all proposed along Route 28, both in front of the post office building, and 56 of them are in front of the main building and in the corner area there along Winslow Gray and Route 28. I want to note that these shrubs are in addition to what was previously proposed. Everything that we had originally proposed remains the same. These are just adding to that vegetation. There is one small exception, and in front of the post office building, we've eliminated the proposed daylilies in response to comments, and we now have 10 of the boxwood shrubs, and also, you know, a variety now of various other plants, flowers, and ground cover, which I think will enhance that landscape buffer and make it a little bit more diverse. And then third, what we've done is we have adjusted the proposed trigger for phase 2. We didn't discuss this in a ton of detail last time, but there were several board members who had concerns, as well as members of the public, about there not being a date certain that phase 2 would start. And what if we didn't reach the occupancy levels we proposed and then phase 2 may never happen? So what we've done is we've taken those comments and we have adjusted the trigger so that now we will provide you with a date certain. We now propose that phase 2 will commence within 5 years after the building commissioner has issued the first certificate of occupancy for the main building. So in other words, once the construction is done and we get our first certificate of occupancy, we have 5 years to cut until we have to start phase 2. In connection with this, we now propose the full 54 required parking spaces in the rear gravel area during phase 1, and that's so we can achieve full occupancy during that phase, since the trigger is no longer connected to occupancy levels. We think this is a straightforward approach. It's what several board members indicated they wanted, as well as members of the public, and it will provide that date certain that everyone is looking for to ensure that phase 2 will commence. So with that, we're all here. We welcome your questions and thank you.
Mr. Chairman, someone from the public has asked that some plans be viewed because they haven't been able to follow what's going on.
I'm pretty sure that what's going to happen is a board member is going to ask for them to be shown, and Jan is likely to show them to us. I wanted Attorney Campus to have the opportunity to present the narrative that she wished. I assure you I'll be asking questions about the plans so that everybody at home can see them. Okay? All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to present as part of the continued hearing?
No.
Okay. And let's go to now Mr. Martin. Hello, sir. Why don't we have you start the questioning or the information gathering?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I would, I'm pleased to see that there has been some changes in terms of more happening in phase 1 than phase 2. I'm still concerned. I'm also a little concerned about how, during the first number of years that this is going to be, the back is going to be kind of left in a kind of a dust bowl gravel parking lot look. I have a little issue with that. I can just see that being kind of at least a temporary nightmare in terms of how that's going to look. If that's just gravel, it seems to just show parking spaces, including parking spaces in the back that just kind of dead end there. And so I guess I'm not thrilled with that. I'd like to see at least maybe a little bit of landscaping back there. The other landscaping that I had at least asked for before, I don't see any of that added. I was looking for trees in the area to the east of the large new building there, and in that kind of central island just to the east of that. None of those were added, and there isn't any little kind of foundation shrubbery or something that we thought could break up the front of the building. You've done that nicely in the back of the building, but the Zippo in the front, just all building and pavement, and then pavement for the parking spaces until we get to the reduced green buffer strip in the front on the road.
Mr. Martin, could I stop you there and ask whoever does have the revised landscape plan to now put it up so we can identify what Mr. Martin is referring to in the light?
Brian, do you have that?
Thank you. Thank you. And with your cursor, perhaps as Mr. Martin is referencing areas you might show the public at home.
So, that's the regular, full plan for phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2, of course, is the red outlined area, and that's fine. Other than I'm going to have you bring up the other plan that shows kind of what it'll look like in the meantime. But the building to the east there, the totally new building, is just showing a few little shrubs around the front and toward the parking. And if you move the little cursor just a little bit to the right, like where it shows those 3 little shrubs there and the shrubs in the front, I really feel that area could take and should take and warrant a regular tree in that area. And plus the area just to the so-called northeast from there where that sticks out there that that just again has 3 little shrubs. So I would like to see that. And then in front of the building, it's again just all pavement up to the parking spaces on Route 28. And some of the, especially for the storefronts, maybe that aren't restaurants, that set back a little bit, some kind of foundation planting setups there in terms of a little bit more in terms of like what you did in the back would break up the looks of that substantially and help that, I would think, a lot. And I at least would like to see that. And then if you can go to the other plan that shows, you know, the temporary phase
Before I'm sorry. Before you leave, could we just go back to the last plan so I know what you were referring to in those last comments, Mr. Martin?
It would have been, yeah, on the front of the building on 28, the main building.
Yes.
So for west, yeah, on there.
Sure.
Some breakup with some kind of vegetation, you know. If there's a couple of restaurants there, then fine, don't have anything. But in a couple of the other buildings that set back a little bit more, if you had a 2-foot strip of you know, vegetation for flowers and shrubs and so forth, would break up the pavement building atmosphere there. It's similar to what they did in the back, where you can see there's a lot of shrubs. That I'd like to, plus the trees I mentioned in those other islands, which I was hoping would be added, and I have not been.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Then if we went to that other plan that came up briefly.
Okay.
You know, I'm just concerned that the whole phase 2 area of the back, you know, we're just going to have kind of a gravel, and I don't know how they're going to separate spaces, how anything's going to look even halfway decent there until the final phase 2 is completed. And I'm not, you know, I understand their monetary restrictions and how they're trying to do the phase 2, and I understand that. On the other hand, I'm just afraid that that's not going to look at all nice back there, and be kind of a problem if it's just open gravel parking area, so to speak. I mean, how do you even delineate spaces and travel flow and everything else that would be, you know, normally seen, and if this was all done in one phase? That's all I had.
Thank you. Mr. Needs. Dick? Oh. Dick, are you with us? All right, let's go to Mr. Nicanello, please.
Failed to unmute. I've failed to unmute. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
All right. I have a little bit of a concern with the 5 years, and I'm looking for justification for that length of time before phase 2 happens. I understand you're concerned about filling the buildings, but 5 years is a long time to have kind of a makeshift back parking lot in a major commercial area. And I just wanted to get a feel for the justification and the reasons why you needed so much time.
Ms. Campus, could you speak to that, or
I
whoever?
didn't know if you wanted me to wait or, yeah, I'm happy
no.
to respond to that. Part of it is I mean, the biggest reason is the uncertainty going on right now in this world with the pandemic. We hope that these will get filled. We anticipate they will, but we don't know what's going to happen in, you know, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months from now. Another consideration we have, you guys probably remember that Great Island Plaza also owns the adjacent lot at 606 to 610 Route 28. And while it was permitted separately from this, you know, Great Island Plaza sees this whole area as one. And so ideally, what we'd like to do is construct phase 1 of this project and also construct the building at 606 to 610 and get that occupied as well, and then come back to finish the rear parking of this lot. So it's really a combination of financing and just timing with these with these projects. And I think you all will agree that getting that 606 to 610 project done, because it also faces Route 28, is of great importance too.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Neitz?
No, I'm gonna let that simmer a little bit before I comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nicanello?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. First, I have to say thank you for the applicant for going through all this, and it's been a long time. The property has just been dormant, and to come in and try to revise it and make it something that you want to happen is quite a task. And to go through the permitting process is quite a task, and I know it's tedious, but it from what I'm looking at, it is such an improvement of what is there. I'd like to see the project commence as soon as possible. I understand we can't get the whole thing done because there is some funds issues and the way the world is right now with the virus going on. But to have some movement start within 12 months, I think is absolutely outstanding. And for us to work with the applicant in trying to get the best picture possible is extremely important. Is it going to be perfect? No, but I think we can put a condition where we can have the petitioner come back in so much time so we can make sure that it's going to be exactly what we'd like to see. But I would like to see the project move along extremely fast, and I hope it fulfills the obligation of the money part of it for the applicant, because to have the site finished within 10 years, I mean, we've been looking at it this way for more than 10 years. So I think we're extremely fortunate, and I don't have any particular questions right now for the applicant. I know she's been working very hard and trying to bring it back to life. And so I think that we should work with her and make it come back to life. And like I said, it's not going to be perfect, but I think we should try to make it at least 99%. And I think the board is getting there. And I feel that we have to get it going, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Igo, please.
Yes, good evening. Question, presuming that we issue the special permits and after the appeals process, how soon do you anticipate beginning construction?
We'd like to pull a building permit as soon as possible. And in fact, we were just discussing perhaps demolishing the 12 Winslow Gray part and the building at the far east of the main building without, before we even get this special permit to get things going.
Well, I'm not sure, you'd have to talk to the building department about that, but you didn't answer my question. What's your timeline for construction?
It's in terms of when we can start? Or
You
in
said
terms of,
as soon as possible. I'm looking for
Yeah.
more of a definitive date when you're plan on beginning construction.
Jan is probably the better person to answer that question. Jan, do you mind?
Yes, hi. Sure, I know there's some waiting period that we have to go through, correct, Jeannie?
Yeah, just a 20-day appeal period.
And obviously we need to go through the financing stage, and we should be ready to go. And we plan on completing this phase 1 within 7 months from the start date. So ideally, we break ground sometime in mid-October, if everything goes well. From what I heard, it will probably take, it shouldn't take more than 60 days to close on a loan, and we should be able to, get going sometime in October and finish before next summer. So that's the timeline.
Are all the applications filled out for the financing?
Robert, do you want to speak to that?
Robert here.
Allison, I'm sorry to cut in, but whoever has that humming noise in the background, could you please mute your mic while that noise is going on?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
This is Robert Savaro. You can hear me fine?
I can, yes.
Okay. Well, our original commitment letter expired because they only last for a week or so. And I know there's a couple well-educated real estate people on the board that understand that. We have 3 banks lined up that are looking at the project and are very interested. One did give us a commitment letter before the addition of these new improvements, which is going to increase the need for borrowing. So we have to go back to them.
Mhm. Okay. And in terms of your borrowing on the commitment letter you have, can you give me an idea as to what percentage of the project is being financed by the bank?
Well, it's based on less than a 70% loan to value, but I don't know. That's an equity question as opposed to I'm not sure I answered your question.
So you're going to borrow 70%? That's what the bank's going to give you?
Less than that.
Less than 70%?
That's the goal.
When you say that's the goal, is that you're trying to borrow as much as 70% or keep it under 70%?
We're trying to do it so that the banks will lend it. They're actually in control. And now I have to wait for Jan to come up with the new numbers after this meeting, right? After this meeting, and then I have to go to the banks and say, this is now the new approved site plan, and this is now the new funds we need.
Okay. Okay. And the engineering, as far as that goes, you presuming you get your financing, the engineering has been done pretty much?
I think that's a Jan question.
I'm trying to get an idea as to when you guys are going to be ready to break ground, because you're asking for a 5-year period after you start getting certificates of occupancy. It's going to take you 3 years to get going. We're talking 8 years before the second phase kicks in. So can someone enlighten me as to what the timelines are here?
John, what I can tell you is nothing has changed on our side, which is as soon as the banks and the tenants are available, Haya will finish the project, all phases 100%.
Okay. All right. I'd like to talk to you about the special permit that we issued you some time ago relative to 606 to 610 Main Street. Is that the one to the right of the post office?
That's correct.
Why hasn't the construction on that began? You came to the board probably, what, a year or so ago on that?
Yeah, we did. We were under a timeline with that for coming to the board because you'll recall it was destroyed by fire. So we only had 2 years before we could file to rebuild in the same spot under your bylaw. So it was more of a rush to get the permit. And then the plan was always to do this part first, but we just had to get the permit for that first.
So your representation to the board that night is you weren't planning on actually going forward with the special permit. You just came in to preserve your rights.
Well, we plan on going forward with the special permit, absolutely.
I tell you the reason I asked that is you came in last time for that one and you were all gung-ho and ready to go, and we made special accommodations for parking in the rear behind the post office. We put in a lot of work for that, and then nothing happened. What assurances can you give the board that if we issue this special permit tonight, anything will happen here as well?
Well, I mean, Haya has spent a lot of money on these projects, and of course she wants to go forward. She's hoping to get a ton of money from the banks to finance these projects. I don't really know how to answer that, except that she'd be crazy not to go forward with this. We wouldn't be here if she didn't intend to go forward with these projects.
Well, I know, but Council, I think, and I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but I think you just made a representation that you hope to complete that building within the phase 1. Is that correct? Did you just say that?
It makes more sense from a construction standpoint because these two parcels do connect at the post office to do that all at once. Yes. So the goal is to do that. And we think the 5 years will give us sufficient time to do all of that and then start phase 2. So that's why we've proposed the 5 years. Plus, I mean, we did build in some cushion because we don't know what's happening with the global pandemic.
Mm-hmm. No, I can appreciate that, but I'm just trying to, you know, get an understanding here. In terms of the, I had a question on the phase one in the front. I'm looking at a sheet that you submitted that shows the rear of the property outlined in red. There's a dotted broken red line that encompasses an area in the rear. Is that your phase two?
Within, yeah, Brian will go to it, so it's easy to refer to. Within that red dotted line is phase two.
Yeah.
So you'll see
Okay.
that all of the plantings along the roadways are completed in phase one, which we think is the most important to do. And there already are a lot of existing trees in that easterly buffer. And there's vegetation also in the northerly buffer. So, you know, the areas that are the least vegetated and the most visible will get done in phase one.
Okay, now at where phase one and phase two meet, we're in between the post office and the proposed building. In that broken area, first off, this driveway that goes between the post office and the new building, are you eliminating that building in there, or is that going to be built? The one that I see in shadow there, the gray.
Right. That is to be built, and not to confuse, in case it's confusing, that building is proposed in phase one. This dashed line is just for purposes of the landscaping. All of the work on the buildings will be done in phase one.
Okay, so now I'm a little bit confused because I'm asking for a plan that delineates phase one and phase two, so we have a clear understanding what we would approve in phase one.
Yeah.
You've got that all bordered in phase two.
That's the landscape. What Brian has on the screen right now is the phase one site plan. So this
Okay,
is what's
so
going to be
all
done
the
in phase one.
hardscape, so all the hardscape to be done, not only in the front, but in the rear as well of the main building will all be complete in phase one?
Do you mean the sidewalk area behind?
The rear of the building, all
Yes.
I don't know, you can't see what I'm pointing to, but it's to the north, in the rear of the building. You have all that right there. That's all going to be complete in phase one?
The hardscape?
And all the plantings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're planning on finishing the curb and all the plantings around the strip. That's the goal. Everything beyond that will be just gravel for now. We'll break it. We'll try to break it up with some greenery so it looks clean. You know, the last thing we want to, you know, for this to look like an eyesore. So we'll do the best in the meantime within those 5 years, so everything looks, you know, very nice and clean and organized in the back of this plaza.
Okay. Now, when we're looking at the front of the post office, you are proposing to have those diagonal spots. Are those going to be brand new in phase one?
Those will be part of phase one, yes. We're reducing the number of front parking in front of the post office from, I think, 7 to 4.
Okay. Does phase one end at the corner of the post office? The corner of the building there? Anything?
The back corner, kind of the northwest corner?
Well, I'm looking more east. Down in there, yeah.
Oh, sorry. That's phase one, yes.
Okay, now from the corner of the post office all the way down to your property line to the east, where that other building that we gave you the special permit for, what's going to happen with that area, if anything, in phase one?
Outside of these property lines?
Yes.
Ideally, we're gonna do the pavement and everything on that parcel too, because if we're digging up in front of the post office, it makes sense to do the same thing and connect it all now at the same time.
I agree with you. I just don't see that on your plan.
Well, yeah, it's not part of this project technically, so we didn't show it.
Well,
But you can
Okay.
see from this plan that it does connect and traffic will flow from the adjacent lot westerly into this parcel as well.
Okay. The reason why I asked that is because I would consider that part of this plan. Where your property boundary is to the east, where you no longer have property going to the next neighbor, from there forward along Route 28, I would expect that that would all be done in phase one. If you don't build that building that we gave you a special permit for, that's a different animal. But I'm talking about the driveway would all be finished. The buffers would all be planted all the way to the property line. Correct?
Within the 5 years,
Within phase one.
phase one. Okay.
Was that your understanding?
Yeah, I think so. That's my understanding.
Yeah,
Well,
we-
that's a
Don,
question.
can you give
Yes.
a more detailed answer?
Yes, I would like to chime in on this. We don't expect to start 606, 610 immediately. We want to focus on this strip and get that finished. So we want to clean up 606, 610 and plant some wildflowers or, maybe some grass. So it just looks clean right now. It's a sand pit. So, but we're planning on building that building as soon as we can do it financially. So it's going to require a separate loan. It's a standalone project. So we're going to work on that in the meantime while this is getting built. So we don't want to give you any kind of timeline on it, but we're hoping to get it done as soon as possible in conjunction with this project. So
Don, what about the hardscape though, setting aside the building?
it all has to be done all together because the septic and the drainage, they need to go in before we do the hardscape and paving in front of the building. So I don't want to commit to anything on that parcel because we don't have the financing for this parcel yet. So, but we plan on doing it as soon as we can get all the ducks in a row and we have the financing. We want to connect to this project and continue.
Okay, so I think what I just heard you say is 606 to 610 is not part of phase one. You're going to build that when it's financially feasible to do so, correct?
Correct.
And you're not planning on doing anything finishing the driveway or the buffer in this phase one. That would be done when you build that building. Is that what you're telling the board?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
But we will need to the buffer between Route 28 and the post office will need to be extended because it's all one piece of it's one island continuing on 606, 610. So we'll have to do the same curb. We will have to fix that as a part of phase one. But we don't plan on breaking the ground on this project any further beyond that. So we want to put some plantings, and they will probably continue in front of 606, 610. So that island is all finished. But we don't plan on starting on that, on anything beyond that until we actually can do it. So we already have a permit, so we can go for financing, but we're trying to get permitting on this so we can follow through with the bank and get this thing going. So there's a lot of moving parts, and ideally we want to connect as soon as we can. So it could be within a year. We'll be able to start on that 606, 610 if everything goes well. So, but we don't want to give you any kind of hard timelines on this because there's just so many moving parts, and everything is uncertain as at this point. So once we get all the permits, we can follow through the financing, and then we can get the 606, 610 started as well.
Okay. I think that's all I have for now. I may come back with some further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. I think I've covered everybody now. If I haven't, somebody please shout out. But I'm going to go ahead believing that I'm the last person to question or speak. My understanding and my memory of having sat on this 606 to 610, or do I have this right, street addresses? The
Yes.
610 property was that they absolutely stood alone. I never anticipated one would require the other to be done. I think you're under a time constraint attendant to the special permit in any event. And the you had the time frame within which to pull a building permit for the raise and replace or the replacement of a fire destroyed property. You needed time to in order to go forward with that by coming before our board for special permit relief there. And I've never, in my mind at least, seen the two of them as a merged project. Certainly not during any part of the presentation on this. And I'm a little skeptical as to how we can rule on the relief sought here by making it conditioned upon relief sought on a whole nother parcel that's not even part of this presentation or relief sought here tonight. The other thing is that I got to tell you, I'm personally so impressed with the way that you have come back here and attended to the concerns of the board. As much as I like Mr. Igo's picture up there, I'd be okay if that went.
My picture?
Yeah. So
I can see you. I don't know. Is that what you're looking at? Is me? I'm looking at the plan.
So I got to tell you that I'm very impressed with what you've come back with, but I still am a bit confused tonight. And I think you can settle my confusion by just showing me on these plans, and more importantly, showing the people who are concerned about this, that are not members of this board, but are constituents that want to chime in on it, what it is you're actually doing here in the new phase one. So if we could go to either plan or any other plan that is going to show us what the new phase one parking will be in the front of these buildings. And I include in that the post office. I just want everybody to have a clear understanding of what we're talking about will be now implemented in the new phase one. Again, if you have to go to other plans, like a parking plan, feel free to do it.
This is our new phase one plan. It's a little bit busy in the front now because there's so much going on. But what you can see, those two rectangles in the front are subsurface drainage systems that are being put underground. And then on top of that, you see the buffer area is closest to the lot line. And this plan doesn't show all the landscaping, but the landscaping in that buffer area will be done in phase one. You also then heading north, you have the access way, which was requested by the fire department. That is a one-way access lane all the way around the front of the building. And then going just north of that, you have 7 parallel parking spaces.
I want you to show the people at home, if you would please, what those are and where they are, because I'm not seeing them on this plan. Brian, I think, has his
cursor on them now.
Yeah, well, instead of using the cursor that way, we had a better plan that showed it to us. I don't care that it was designated plan phase one or phase two previously. I just wonder if we could shift over to that plan so
Brian,
that people
do you have
can.
phase two? Oh, he's good.
That's great. That's coming back.
That's what phase one is going to look like in the front.
All right. And would you identify whoever's got the mouse, please? Would you identify, or the cursor, please identify one? Show us the 7 parking spaces we're talking about. That's
sure.
One.
Here's one.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
5. 6. And 7.
Okay, in my opinion, there has to be one that is a complete, at least one that is designated a handicap only. And I would want to see that on the final, the final approval that we grant. Because not only am I concerned about it, but I think others have expressed concern And we'll get to others' comments in a bit, but I mean, clearly we don't want somebody that might need a handicapped spot to have to come in from the gravel behind in this first phase, if we can at least provide one of those spots. And my concern, we are now showing me the cursor, is that it appears, and you can tell me, I'm confused by this plan as to really where is phase one and phase two. So this isn't really particularly helping me to see the cursor over there, unless you're telling me that those apparently 3 spots there will be constructed in phase one.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, yes, let me put back up the phase one plan for you. But you cannot, a handicap parking space cannot be a parallel parking space. And that's why.
I'm fine with that, but what I'm saying to you is your red outline makes it appear to me, at least, that those designated spots are in phase two. And I'm just trying to identify where is the handicap spot if it's not going to be out front, because are you telling me you're going to build those spots? One I see as handicap with the hash marks next to it, and the other 1, 2, 3 appear to be regular parking spots. So where precisely is the phase one handicap parking going to be?
Sure. I can explain that. Mr. Chairman, this is the phase one site plan that we're looking at. So everything that you see on this plan will be built in phase one. That includes 2 handicap parking spaces. The first one right here where my cursor is a van accessible space. Then you have the shared aisle between them. And then just north of that, you have the second handicapped accessible space. And as allowed by the Architectural Access Board, they can share a striped aisle.
Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that. I just this is more because I think people at home need to see this. Okay.
Absolutely. And I think I understand the confusion people are having, but what they need with the other plan, what people need to understand is this is the landscaping plan.
Mm-hmm.
So the red line here is relative to the landscaping only, and maybe I should have made that clearer by labeling it phase one landscape, phase two landscape. But this is red line here is only intended to be relevant to the landscaping, the planting.
All right, next, if you would, please, would you show us the raise and replace building? Would you just, with your cursor for people at home, show where the building that's going to be raised and rebuilt will be? I know you've done this before, but I just want everybody to see it at home.
Sure. This is the proposed building, which is going to replace the existing building, which is underneath it, more or less within, not the exact same footprint, but similar footprint. And that's this building right here.
And that's a phase one construction.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, and then why, and I think it was Mr. Martin that asked this, why isn't the landscaping immediately around that building not included in phase one, or am I missing that?
May I, Mr. Chairman? We actually are. I understand where you're coming from, and I think that red line is not. It shows like it's here excluding that landscape around that building, but we are planning on landscaping around that building.
Okay, well, can we go back to the revised landscape plan then?
Yeah, I think that line has to be modified. So actually, the entire building will be included with the curb and the landscaping.
Sure. To me, if you drew that line easterly, I think, I'm not sure where the compass is. I can't see it on my end.
Yeah, we'll go around the curb that's behind that building. That's the intention.
Square it up, just plain square it up there.
Exactly right.
Where you see it. And then, or if you're concerned about the pavement, run it along that far bed there to square up with the red line behind the building. I think that is something that is a natural. That building is going to stand out. That building is going to draw you into this. It's a magnificent design with a wonderful parking scheme in front of it. It just plain looks nice. So my concern again is that I would have to see that red line squared out. And if you could take, so whoever's got the control of the cursor, if you could just, I would say take that above there Well, okay, yeah, sure. Just so long as those islands that we're showing there are going to be landscaped would allay my concern. The benefit, quite frankly, that I see to this project is, and my other four board members may disagree, but the benefit that I see to this project moving forward, the way we have now reconfigured it in terms of phase one versus phase two, is so overwhelming, in my opinion, the pluses that we receive versus the negatives of having a gravel parking lot back there. I understand where everybody comes from and being concerned about that, but let's remember the Witter Museum, if we can, before Captain Parker's did parking lot changes after coming before our board. That was one big gravel parking lot, and it was nevertheless kept good and functional. And we look at the air park down the street, and those back parking lots are in many areas crushed stone or gravel parking lots, and they are able to keep those appropriate. After all, we're trying to bring in customers to this facility once constructed. And I think, though, that it be gravel, I'm presuming that somebody will maintain that gravel so that it can be utilized by the potential customers, or I don't think anybody will be renting the building. If we do nothing that is doable, that is in phases 1 and 2, if we don't allow those to proceed, our petitioner can say, you know what, I'm going to leave the building as it is. And then we gain nothing on something that we all can agree. And I know the petitioner agrees is an unfortunate way, deterioration of this plaza. And last time when we spoke, she spoke very eloquently. When we spoke, I'm sorry, about the special permit over at 610, she spoke very eloquently as to why this occurred. And then I think Attorney Campus informed us last time as to how it was allowed to occur. And that's between family, but family sometimes is a problem. So we have to get by those problems. And now I'm glad to see they've all been worked out for our petitioner. And she hopefully will be able to move forward with her financing the project construction. I'm a very big fan of this project. I think that you have met the concern that I had last time, and I'm glad to see that. Before proceeding on to any public commentary that people may wish to chime in on, I want to read a couple of matters that have been presented to the board. And they are David Bernstein, who was here previously. I don't know if he's here tonight. And if he'd rather speak, that's fine, but he spoke very eloquently last time. And if you'd rather I just read it, I'll be happy to read it. Are you here, Mr.
He is here. I can unmute him.
Please, and ask him, let's see if we can get his input. Does he want to speak or does he want me to read?
Go ahead and read. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're quite welcome. You were such a pleasure to hear from last time, but the email or letter is very succinct. Dear board members, as you might remember, I sat through the complete hearing for the Great Island work. I was pleased that the board asked for more information as well as redoing what is to be completed on phase 1 versus phase 2. However, I want to comment for a few of my concerns. The following comments are made without being able to see any changes in the proposal from last meeting. 1, I would prefer to see no parking at all on the front and just have a drive for fire safety. This would allow the buffer zone to be larger. It would also enhance the way the buildings look from Route 28. In fact, I believe it would be more inviting for shoppers. 2, I would prefer to see plantings on the buffer zone along Route 28 to be in phase 1. 3, I would like to see a list of details for phase 1 and phase 2. The maps online are difficult to see. For example, at first I did not see that the original phase 1 proposal kept angle parking until phase 2. 4, I understand they are asking for 2 phases so that money generated from phase 1 will allow them to get a loan rather for phase 2. What happens if they are unable to get a loan? Thank you for working so hard to make sure this building proposal is good for the applicant and town. I look forward to shopping there. David Bernstein of 2 Wisteria Road, West Yarmouth. Thank you, Mr. Bernstein, for playing such an active role in these deliberations. A letter of August 27, 2020 is forwarded. It's my belief, though it's not signed, this is Ms. Britta's correspondence, isn't it, Ms. Clark? Please confirm with the applicant that I'm referring to that transmittal to us. Was that from?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Was that Susan that said, yes, it is?
No, it's Kathy Williams. It was. From
Okay,
Susan
thank you,
Britta.
Kathy. So I'm just going to read it and then invite Ms. Britta to speak if she'd like to beyond that. Please confirm with the applicant that the outcome of the lawsuit mentioned at the hearing on 8/13/2020 will not have a negative effect on the Great Island Plaza project. Please confirm that whatever number of parking spaces, if any, allowed in front of the renovated buildings will be customer-only parking, not for deliveries or truck parking with advertising on the vehicles. How many buildings will have rear entrances? Sorry, just let me make a note if I could, please. I apologize for the delay. How many buildings will have rear entrances? It was unclear from the testimony on 8/13/2020. Sidewalk materials, please describe materials to be used in sidewalk design. Lighting, following up on Mr. Martin's questioning regarding lighting, please confirm there will be no neon or backlit lights used on the project. I'm not sure what backlit lights are. I do certainly know that we're not going to have neon here because that's not permitted in locations such as this or applications such as this. And I clearly recall that our applicant identified that the lights as depicted on the plans or renderings provided were the lights that would be installed. Sidewalk materials, we're going to get back to that in a minute. Site plan doesn't include a sign identifying site as Grand Island Plaza. If yes, what is design and materials? Where will the sign be placed? Handicapped parking, following up on Mr. Neat's question, exactly where is it? What is the size of the project in square feet for commercial space and parking space? Since phase development is tied to occupancy, what is the marketing plan for the stores intended for the site? If there is no parking along Route 28 in front of the buildings, would there be enough space for fire travel lane and a 20-foot buffer? Ms. Britta, do you want to say anything in addition to that, or do you want me to try to have those questions answered?
No, Mr. Chairman, you can proceed.
Thank you. So we have, again, as always, good to see you and hear from you. So we have a few questions that I think have to be answered by our developers and petitioner, but also a few questions that we can answer as a board. So with the first, please confirm with the applicant that the outcome of the lawsuit mentioned at the hearing on 8/23/2020 will not have a negative effect on the Great Island Plaza project. I submit that we have no authority to even inquire about that lawsuit. We have to take this case on the merits as presented. Are you in disagreement with that, Ms. Campus, or any other board members? I just don't know how we inquire about lawsuits. We all know, at least the three lawyers present here all know that lawsuits are unpredictable at best, and there's no assurances from any one of them. And don't ever believe a lawyer that tells you it's assured. The next question, please confirm that whatever number of parking spaces, if any, allowed in front of the renovated buildings will be customer-only parking, not for deliveries or truck parking with advertising on the vehicles. I think that that's a little difficult to do, but I do suggest to the board that anybody that might be inclined to make a motion in favor of this petition should perhaps consider a condition which is appropriately brought by Ms. Britta as a concern, that all deliveries for these various buildings be in the rear of the buildings instead of along the streetscape. The parking spaces have now been pointed out to us in somewhat good detail by Jan, and along with the confirmation that the new building to be erected will have those 4 spaces in front of it. Forgetting the parking lot spaces now, I'm glad to see that those are going to be delineated, I mean, the post office, excuse me, that those are going to be delineated, as will the handicap spots and as will the parking out front. And I think it was Brian that educated me on the fact that we can't put a handicap spot with parallel parking. So thank you for that.
Light on over there, Lee.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, you hear me?
Yes, yeah, I didn't hear you.
No, go ahead, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, how many buildings will have rear entrances? Again, I think we had a depiction of this. I'm assuming every building is going to require a rear entrance, and who knows, maybe even a public entrance from the rear. So I'm not sure how we go beyond the renderings that we've seen concerning that. I think that's more the purview of our wonderful building commissioner and the applicant or the contractor as to comply with code requirements. I think sidewalk materials is something we do not know anything about. I wonder if we could hear what those materials are intended to be, or is there a depiction of a schedule of sidewalk materials within the plans, and the plans are just because of the limits of internet too small to see that. Who's going to comment on that? Jan, you have to turn your mic on, please.
Yes, we're proposing concrete sidewalks with granite curbs, which we plan on. And I know there was a comment from Mr. Martin that there's no landscaping in the front of the building. I can share my screen with the rendering. So we do propose planters and and also like outdoor seating. So we want to make it look inviting. Obviously, we're not going to just keep plain concrete in front of the building. So I can share that screen and really show you the vision. So maybe you don't recall from design review, but I can just refresh everyone on what our vision is for the facade and the look of the building. So it's concrete sidewalk, granite curbs, and planters, outdoor seating for the also all around. So even in the rear of the building, it's going to be all concrete sidewalks.
Okay. We'd all love to see brick everywhere, but go right along Route 6A in Barnstable, and we see the failings of brick when they, despite their presence there for not too long a period of time, they erupt and the like in bad weather. So, I mean, it'd be nice to see some texture put to the concrete, but I don't know that that's within our purview. Lighting, I think there should be a condition, however, that the lighting be consistent with the depictions on the renderings, because that was the representation from you last meeting when I asked specifically what would those lights be and how would they relate to what we're seeing on the depictions.
Yes, all the lights, as we haven't made any changes since design review. So we supplied cut sheets and specifications for all these lights. They're nice gooseneck style lights and sconces. They're also the parking lot lights will match the building lights. Plus, they will be broken up with some nice surface sconces. They will delineate corners of each unit, so it will look very nice. And all the lights will be they won't be bright blue or anything, so it will be all very on the warm side. We don't plan on using any neon lights or any obviously any sort of lighting like that.
Well, that's good, because you wouldn't be compliant with town
Right.
bylaws. So, but you've referred now to design review as having made their recommendations, and clearly then I'm assuming that the petition would have no problem if another condition, assuming there would be a favorable vote, would include compliance with design review recommendations.
Yes.
That's fine.
Thank
They
you.
did recommend the daylilies though in the post office buffer, which you guys didn't love, so,
We can make an exception for the day.
okay.
Site plan doesn't include a sign identifying site as Great Island Plaza. Again, no relief is being sought concerning a sign. So I don't know that we should even consider that. If you need sign relief, you should come back and ask for sign relief, and then we can weigh in on it. But until then, I don't know that we have any right to weigh in on what you might put that might be completely consistent with our sign code, with our zoning bylaw code provisions concerning signs. Handicap parking, we've resolved that, I think. And again, thank you, Ms. Britta, for bringing that issue up. It's very important to all of us. Size of the project in square feet for commercial space and parking space. Again, that's a parking load question. The load is determined by the zoning bylaws and enforced by Mr. Grillis, who I know always is very concerned about parking and does a fine job as a building commissioner. And I'm sure he'll be on top of that the whole way through. The only relief we're getting, that this petitioner is getting, is as prayed for within the petition. And we've already addressed that. So how many spots you need and the like is already within this petition. And if there is no parking along Route 28 in front of the building, would there be enough space for a fire travel lane and a 20-foot buffer? I don't know. I'm going to defer on that completely because I have my own thoughts, and I don't know that my thoughts need to be raised at this point. But I'm going to speak lastly to whoever brought it up about the time frame. This is now one of those things that maybe we do, a plus and a plus instead of a plus and a minus. The trade-off on this phase one is wonderful. The implementation of phase two, we've heard all sorts of different approaches. One was to approach that with it being tied to full occupancy. And now we're being told that it's 5 years from the date of first occupancy. I'm completely satisfied with a time certain. I don't know that I like 5 years from a date of complete occupancy. The reasons we were given last time at the meeting was the need for that phase two was predicated upon getting rental income from phase one, which when rented, hopefully would enhance the value of the property and allow for financing or direct pay through income generated from the tenants to pay for that phase two. And it was seemingly much quicker than when we might get full occupancy at this site. And what concerns me there is we now have but one occupant at this site. And I don't know how long it's going to take for the expansion of the second floor and part of these with a residential unit and the raise and replace of the new building with whatever tenants you may seek to put in there that's allowed by law. I don't know how long that full occupancy is going to occur. So I think it's got to be something a little different, maybe a combination of the two of them for me to support this, because full occupancy may never occur. And we've seen properties where they just never get filled for whatever reason. And that means, maybe we tie it to something like a percentage of occupancy is what drives it. So that if you have one or two units that just won't rent for whatever the reason be, they are, not the reason why there's not going to go to phase two. And what I point you to is there are two of them further down along Route 28 in South Yarmouth. Now where the I don't want to misstate it. All the vans are out there in front. Can anybody help me with what that property is designated as?
The mole doctor, you mean?
And it was a social agency. With
Yes,
the
yeah, with-
rehabilitation.
Transitions?
Yes, exactly.
And then somewhat across from that diagonally is another where everybody might remember there was a Subway. And that for a very long period of time had unoccupied space with its former and maybe current owner, the Bach family. And that remained one or two spots in there were remained unoccupied for many years after its construction. So I get construction. I just can't agree to a 5-year period from full occupancy as suggested.
Chairman,
Mr. Chair,
Chairman,
it's
I
not,
think it was represented that it was 5 years from the first certificate of occupancy.
Oh, I thought it was full.
sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may, it's 5 years from the date the building commissioner issues the first certificate of occupancy. It's not tied whatsoever to full occupancy at all.
Boy, haven't I dragged along for no viable reason?
Well, I didn't want to interrupt you, Mr. Chairman, but I, on that same vein, I have an equal concern for the 5 years. If it's half full, or even if it's fully occupied, and they choose for one circumstance or another, or some other economic or pandemic or whatever circumstance, they choose not to do phase 2. What repercussions does the town have at that point?
You know,
Would
that's
they-
a wonderful question. And you know-
Aside from litigation, could we revoke the other certificates of occupancy if the terms of the occupancy were, if the terms of phase 2 were not complied with?
Well, you know, we've had, general contractors come in and do subdivisions with spec homes in our past. And private roads would be installed and performance bonds would be required. I don't know that we have any basis here tonight to suggest a performance bond. Who the heck knows what the cost of that would be back there? And the cost of the bond might be prohibitive. But I don't know what the penalty is. Can anyone suggest a penalty?
I don't know. I just think that, I don't think the town needs to be a partner in this project. We all want it to happen, but I don't want the town to be left with a project that's not compliant to the terms under which it was built.
Well, Mr. Gorillas is here, I think. And Mark, are you here?
Yes, sir.
I wonder if we could unmute Mark and ask him, what do you see are the penalties you could impose if they didn't proceed to phase 2 and to its completion? Can you fine them on a daily basis?
I believe so, as far as if they would be in violation of zoning, not necessarily building code. And I did pull the building code, section 111.4, revocation of certificate of occupancy. It says that I can only revoke the certificate of occupancy based on if there's a violation of any of the regulations or any of the provisions of 780 CMR, which is the state building code.
Can we make revocation of occupancy a precondition of our Board of Appeals?
I do not think that you could pull it off, no.
Okay.
I don't think it'd be enforceable before a court
Okay.
of law.
Sure.
So I think we're kind of either going to accept there's going to be a phase 1 and a phase 2, and phase 2 is a good faith a belief that it will happen. And I think Mr. Igo, or maybe I'm giving credit the wrong way, but somebody suggested that there be an annual or biannual reviews of this project, where we can have people come in and tell us how they are going. We've run into this again on a condominium complex along Route 28, where they had to keep coming in and telling us that they were working on phase 2 and the like. They were good about it. They did it. And if you all remember, it was because the management were the owners. And when they finally got real management in there, they came into compliance. So I truly believe that this property is increased in its value if phase 2 is completed. And our petition would probably want to increase the value of this substantial investment being made here. I don't know what else to suggest.
Can I ask a quick question relative to phase 2? What are you going to put down on the ground for phase 2, if anything?
We putting down the parking in phase 2 in the rear and landscaping. And we'll also be, in
Excuse
the
me,
ground, we're putting down.
I'm sorry, I asked that question wrong, maybe. What are you going to put down on the ground before you get to phase 2 in the phase 2 area, if anything?
We'll be
Gravel.
putting down the gravel driveway, parking area.
And how
And we're
much
gonna,
gravel will cover the rear of the property?
I don't know the answer to that. Jan might know better, Brian, but I know that we're gonna leave, there is existing vegetation back there that we will leave. You know, we're not gonna tear down anything that's there for this, unless we have to for the gravel parking area, but everything else that's along the easterly boundary and in the back is gonna stay during phase 1.
Mm-hmm.
How about lighting? Would that be included in phase 1 for the parking in the rear?
Yes.
Yeah. Jan, right? Yes.
Yes.
Isn't the lighting for the rear parking lot in large part off the buildings that are to be constructed or reconstructed?
We're also trying to fit in lighting within the gravel area that will continue to work once we're in phase 2. It's a bit tricky to pull off, but we're also proposing lighting within that parking area that we can keep for phase 2 so we don't have to take it down.
All right, but back to Mr. Igo's question, there are 54 spots that are to be utilized back there. Am I right on that number? What are the spots for the rear?
No, it's 5443.
Whatever the number,
43.
what are cars in that area going to park on?
Gravel.
Gravel. Okay. So phase 1 will include graveling that back area instead of leaving it a potential dust bowl.
Correct.
Yes.
And what percentage of the back area will be gravel?
That's a Brian question.
I
Looks like
don't
about-
have that percentage.
Looks like about a third. Sean, it looks like about a third. This is Dick Martin.
Okay, am I missing something? Where do you see that, Dick?
On the plan that shows the dashed spaces in the back, there's a plan that maybe that wasn't brought up. I'm looking at it that I have here that shows the phase 2 parking.
Okay, do you
We wanna know
actually,
phase 1.
council, do you actually have a plan that shows the phase 2 gravel area and parking
No.
area? that
There's
you're
no
it's
phase
paved.
2 gravel area.
No, phase 2 is paved, right?
Excuse
Yeah.
me, phase
No, but
1.
let's put it this way, phase 1 gravel.
Phase
Phase
1
1 is gravel, phase 2 is paved.
All right, everybody, time out. One at a time. Go ahead, Mr. Igo.
Okay, I'm just trying to nail this down. During phase 1, you're gonna gravel the rear of the property.
Yes.
That will eventually be phase 2. What percentage of that property during phase 1 will be gravelled?
Jan, could you go to site plan, phase 1 site plan? The revised phase 1 site plan, I think that it's depicted there.
This is the phase 1 site plan.
Okay, I see this. So everywhere where I see a space is gonna have gravel.
That's
Correct. All
And
these
the
dashed
balance-
lines, this is the edge of gravel.
Okay, and the back of it will be, behind that to the north will just be natural until you do something with it in the final phase 2. Is that correct?
Correct. And one other thing I'd like to point out, this tree line here, this is the existing tree line. There's no
Okay.
need for, we're not going to remove any vegetation within this area in phase 1.
Okay. All right, that answered that question. Okay, that's the only question I had right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask anybody in our audience, if we could go back, please. Anybody in our audience who would care to speak in favor of this petition, please let yourself be known to our moderator and we will invite you to speak.
Mr. Chairman, Haya's had her hand raised for quite some time, and I don't know whether she wanted to speak or not, or whether you would like her to.
Who's that?
Haya Rosenberg is the developer, the property owner.
Oh, certainly, of
Can I
course she
just
can
say
speak.
one thing before Haya speaks? I'm sorry. I received copies of 2 emails from other members of the public in favor of the project, and I just wanted to make sure those were read into the record as well.
You think I've missed something? I apologize for that. I thought I printed everything. Perhaps I didn't. And I don't know how we're going to deal with that if one of the members has, or if you have the emails, you're welcome to read them in.
I have them, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like me to read them.
Please, if you would.
There's an email dated August 27th from Jeff Austin. Dear Mrs. Williams, I have been following the Great Island Plaza project. I would like to express my support for it. This will remove an eyesore with a beautiful plaza that I hope comes soon. We need development like this. Developments without concessions have slowed development for years. I'm hoping the board will approve soon. Sincerely, Jeff Austin. We also received an email today as well from Nicole De Leon. Dear Ms. Williams, I have been following the Great Island Plaza project and want to express my support for it. The board should do everything reasonable and prudent to aid the project to its finish. It is well known that development without concessions has slowed Yarmouth development for years. It would be a perfect spot for my business and others. Please move this project forward. Best regards, Nicole De Leon.
Any others?
That's all I have.
All right, and I want to apologize. Certainly, Ms. Clark did send those to me, and I neglected to print them, and that's why I forgot about them. So it wasn't that she sent them to other board members, but didn't send them to me. So thank you, Ms. Clark, and shame on me. Once again, though, is anybody? I think we're going to wait just a minute to come back to the petition, if that's okay with her. Is that? Can anybody see if she wants to nod yes or wait, shake hand no, shake head no? If she wants to speak now, if it's imperative, sure, go ahead.
I have no way of knowing without unmuting her.
All right, why don't we unmute her then and ask her?
It shall be done.
When all else fails.
Is that me you were referring to?
Hi, Haya.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. I really wanted to clarify why the project happened in the order that it did. And I think Jeannie touched on that initially with the fact that we were under the gun time-wise to have the 606 to 610 permitted, okay? But my vision, what I originally pictured was that when the main part of the plaza is done, the 606, 610 will have a context within which to fit. It didn't feel to me that just a building standing by itself would have command, despite the fact that it will probably look quite nice, but it didn't feel to me like the appropriate order. And I know that in the beginning, when you were trying to question about all the parking spaces, and I said, well, there's going to be plenty of parking. But of course, you couldn't see that then because only the scope of 606, 610 was in the context of the first meeting. I always had pictured that piece as part of this plaza. And so that's why. But financially, I do have to start with what I think is the most important part, and that is to get rid of the eyesore on 590 to 600, which is up to building number 7. And the landscaping up front, I think, worked out very well. And that it actually is a good thing that we do that up front and that it will have a presence. But you know, I'm only as capable as the bank will lend me. And that's why I was getting nervous as a few more things were getting piled on. And I said, okay, I'm not a bank, but you know, and I don't know what they're going to require in order for me to move forward with this. But I feel very good. And Robert has has really held my hand through this, Robert Ciavari. He's been wonderful. And I feel very confident that one of the banks will be the financial backing of this project. And
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and always good to hear from you. So if we could, does anybody else in our audience care to speak in favor of this petition who has not yet had a chance? Ms. Moderator?
I do not see any hands raised or anything in the chat box.
Does anybody in our audience care to speak in opposition to this project?
No one has their hand raised and there's no one in the chat box.
All right, so we're now going to close it to public involvement, dissertation in our thoughts and deliberations, and open it up to board discussion. And just raise your hand if anybody would like to go first. All right, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to ask Mr. Martin to be the guinea pig for us and to proceed first. Mr. Martin, your thoughts?
Guinea pig's a good comment. Actually, I had one other little question on that, the map that shows the phasing and the red line. I was wondering why the red line went over into adjacent parcels, both to the rear and to the east. Is that just a mistake?
That was done just to simplify it so that it didn't crowd out any of the other trees or the call-offs, you know. Just meant
Okay.
to, yeah, so it goes all the way to the property line, that's all.
Okay. You know, I will state, as I've stated before, that I think this is a wonderful proposal. I think you're doing a beautiful job with the building, being able to use what's there and bring it up to snuff and add to it and take a blight and make it look good. And I'm certainly very, very pleased with that. I would like to see the landscaping additions that I've mentioned. Actually, I missed one before. I'd also mentioned about down at that island that sticks out next to the post office and the adjacent property that you guys owned. I was hoping that we would get a tree in there too, because that area is pretty lacking, especially with nothing in the front. So what I noted before, I would certainly, it's not asking a whole lot. It's just going to, I think, make it a lot better looking and greener to be added to the proposal one way or another. I still have some trouble with the phasing. I still have some trouble with the years for the phasing. I think I'd be something like 4 years. I'm also scared that phase 2 doesn't have any clout, so to speak, in terms of if it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. There's no money held. There's no potential way necessarily to get it done. And that is a big concern. On the other hand, I may be willing to forego that in lieu of getting the phase 1 done and the place looking better and you people able to make some money. But if there was some kind of way to make sure that gets done 4 or 5 years down the road, I would certainly feel a lot better. I think the other members would too. Other than that, I mean, I see fit to potentially approve this or to give my yes vote to the project with the amendments or whatever that I've mentioned in terms of the plantings that I would still like to see added. And if anybody has some better ideas about phase 2 and making sure it gets done, I would certainly bow to them. That's all I have now.
Dick, before you sign off, would you just, again, could we bring up the landscape plan and have you reiterate where you wish to have seen trees be located?
Sure.
I mean, what are we talking about in terms of gross
And while we're
numbers?
talking about that, I mean, they said they would do some planters in front of the building, and that's probably okay. I mean, it's not really what I'd like to see, because I know what can happen with planters, but I guess I could live with that. But the area, you know, the entirely new building there to the right, the 7th unit or whatever, those islands that are to the front toward Route 28 and toward the back, and then the island to the northeast, those islands that just show 3 bushes and another little bush, a bunch of little bushes, those are areas that really should have trees. If you look at it and try and think of it, the big scope there, that's a lot of area without shade trees. And it's great that we're having them along in the front and we're doing what we're doing there, and that's all good. But those 3 locations I think should have trees. The location that sticks out to the far bottom right-hand corner, that island that comes out there, which also shows 3 little bushes, that area should have a tree. I definitely would like to see that. The planters, if they're done, that's I guess I can live with that. Phasing is another story, which again, I'm not thrilled with, but I do want to see this project get off the ground, as so many other people do. And I'm happy with how the buildings and the architecture and everything else works. So I'm asking for fairly minor things there, actually.
And in total, those minor things are 4 trees.
I would say that it's 4 trees. Yep.
One would be, and perhaps somebody with the cursor could do this as we go along. One would be in front of the post office on that long plan.
No, not that one. That one is planned. It'll be to the right of
Along
that.
28. No, I'm talking about
In that island right there.
Oh, okay. All right. I
Along
understand.
28, there's not enough room, and I understand that.
All right. And then the other 3 would be
In there, and then to the west, if we move the cursor, one in that area somewhere, it can be in either of those kind of areas right there, but one there. And then to the north, where you see 3 bushes again, one there. And then to the northeast, where you see 3 bushes again, one there.
all right. And the one to the northeast where the cursor now sits, isn't that part of phase 2?
That would be part of phase 2 apparently, and that's fine. That can be part of phase 2.
All right. So the other 3 you'd want to see in phase 1.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let me see. Mr. Neitz, do you have anything you want to say or ask?
I still have some real deep concern about the 5 years, and I wonder if the petitioners council can help us with that, and maybe to allay some fears that if we get to 5 years after the first certificate of occupancy is issued and something disastrous happens, either to the petitioner's plans or to the pandemic or whatever, what recourse do you think that the town has to enforce phase 2 within that time frame?
I'd like to first put it a slightly different way. If some catastrophe were to happen or some unforeseeable event and we could not finish within the 5 years, I would hope that there'd be flexibility written in where we can come back to you and explain the situation. And at that point, you would have the option whether to extend that time period for us. Because if it is something kind of outside of our doing, I think there should be flexibility written in. On the flip side, if we're just sitting there on a fully occupied lot and we have 606, 610 done and we're not doing it, I would think we'd be in violation of zoning and the building commissioner could issue zoning violation.
Mark, are you still on and available to comment on that?
Is correct. If there's a condition that the applicant is not following, then I have every right to begin zoning regulations and follow that process through. Mr. Chairman, when I have a moment, I'd just like to make a comment about one of the trees that Mr. Martin just requested, but I'll take my turn. Thank you.
As soon as
And what would be the recourse? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Mark, what would it be? Daily fines, or would it be?
The ability would be to fine daily in accordance with the zoning bylaw. $300 a day. Every day is a new violation.
Okay.
Per violation. So if there's more than one, then it's $300 per violation per day.
Okay. All right, that helps a little bit, I guess. And I understand, Counselor, that if there were extenuating circumstances and the petitioner needed to come back for an extension, But I got to tell you that 5 years is a long time for us to be in partnership on this project without getting what we agreed to up front. So I think we're all going to be checking our calendars on this, God willing, and making sure that the progress is made, and maybe, you know, if things turn around quickly and the place is fully occupied, that I would expect that would not be put off until the last thing you ever did when you've got full occupancy. And maybe that's where we should tie in a proviso where if there is full occupancy within 2 years or within whatever time frame that full occupancy occurs, that phase 2 would be accelerated immediately.
I don't think we can agree to a condition that upon full occupancy, phase 2 has to start right away.
Why?
Because that doesn't give us the time that we need to make this financially feasible. We don't want to fail at this project. We need time, and there are many components to this project. This is quite frankly how it needs to work for us.
Well, I'm just telling you that I've been on this board for more than 30 years, and I can tell you that I don't ever remember a project where there was a phased project like this, where the town was just hoping that you're going to succeed. And I'm just suggesting that if there is full occupancy quickly, that you don't prolong the finishing of this project to phase 2, just because you're looking to make a lot of money between when you get full occupancy and when you decide you're going to do it.
I'll be quite honest, there's not a whole lot of margin here to make a lot of money. This is not.
Well, that's not inspiring either.
Well, no,
if we're that close.
The vision of Haya is to restore old Cape Cod charm. These buildings were constructed in the 1960s. If she wanted to, she could raise them all and come up with this whole new, denser, plan. But she wants to restore old Cape Cod, and she can do it. She can do it. She just needs time to make sure that it all works. And we're more than happy to come back to the board once a year, once every other year, whatever you guys wish, to give you a report on the status of things. We have every intention of doing this and completing phase 2 as fast as possible. We need to build in some time though to make sure that happens, especially in today's circumstances.
I'm not sold. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Nicanello, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's been an exciting evening tonight. Thank you very much. You're doing a wonderful job. I do like to just comment on those 2 support documents from the neighbors, how wonderful that sounded and how eager they were to see the redevelopment of that corner, as we all are. I would be willing to accept a condition for maybe a review after phase 1. I heard earlier that it would take less than 12 months. So I think that's exciting. I also heard maybe a condition for no deliveries in the front, which I'm sure there won't be, but we want to make sure that the nice old Cape Cod elegance retains without a big FedEx truck in front of it. And I think there was one more condition I can't recall, but that's all I have to say. In the interest of time, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Igo.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we can all agree that we would like to see this project succeed. We'd like to see it go forward, and we are anxious to see this area be redeveloped. I do think the petitioner presents a very, very attractive plan to be there, basically restoring what's there. I do agree that there could be something more dense in that area. So I applaud her for what she's doing. I think the design is very well done. I love the way it looks. I do have concerns about the 5 years. My thinking on that is what we may want to consider doing is giving them 3 years, and that would be 3 years from the first occupancy permit. And if they can't meet that goal, then we would give them the right to come back and ask for an extension, which I certainly would not have a problem doing that. But I would just like to see this thing be in a situation where, as Dick said, it keeps going and it just doesn't stop. Having said that, I would actually like to see enough of this completed where if they didn't complete phase 2, we could live with it. And so what my thinking maybe is everything south from the back of the building on the main building, south towards Route 28 has to be completed. The hardscape, the driveways, the plantings, everything they've represented. Along with that, I would like to see a 15-foot strip of asphalt on the rear of the building running from Winslow Gray Road all the way across to behind the post office. Because I don't think they're going to be able to dig up behind the post office and not replace it with something, because the post office has parking there behind the building. I'm not sure I'm seeing that in phase 1, maybe I am. But just so we're clear. So then they could have the rest of it with the gravel. They've represented they're going to leave some areas that are going to be natural. That's fine with me. But then I don't know that they're under any constraint. And I certainly would feel much more confident that if those things at a minimum were done in phase 1, and by chance some phase 2 didn't get going, then we as a board and the town could live with that. Those are my thoughts. I did write down some things relative to some conditions that we did talk about. I would, and I do plan to support this petition. I do plan to make a motion unless someone else wants to make one. Mine would have certain conditions, but I would like to move this along and see if we can approve this tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And just to weigh in, I like the idea too of putting a realistic time for completion of phase 2 in with a recognition, even within the decision, that the board would indicated clearly that it would consider favorably or understand if a request for continuance needed to be made. However, it could be worded without putting the board to the absolute agreement that they would extend. To me, it's if the finances aren't there, that's a viable reason, you know. But I am impressed with Mark's comments that he could enforce non-compliance of this with daily fines. I think that's a pretty good motivator when you think about it. It's, you know, that's let's call it, it's almost 10.5 a year at $300 a day. I don't think anybody wants to throw that kind of money out the window. But I think it's easier to extend than it is easier to allow it to go out in you know, indefinitely and then perhaps never get done. So I could support your thought, Mr. Igo, on the 3 years from first occupancy, but with an agreement that we would consider any request for reasonable extension of that 3 years. On the driveway behind the property, I'm going to defer on that. I'll vote with whatever the board's majority wants to vote on that. I agree with you. I'm going to vote to support this petition one way or the other this evening, with the conditions that we're going to either put on or that someone wants to add beyond those we've talked about. And those would be, if I have everybody's input accurately, that there would be 4 trees added to both phase, 4 trees added in total, 1 to phase 2 and 3 to phase 1 in the locations identified by Mr. Martin. That there would be an annual or biannual review. I don't know that we've specified that yet. And again, it doesn't matter to me. I'm happy to do either or. Biannually, that would probably only give me about 3 or 4 more reviews that I might do. Well, maybe 2 more that I might consider before saying I got to retire. Any violation to be enforced by what the building commissioner, consistent with whatever the zoning bylaws allow for. That's kind of a given, but we, you know, wouldn't be bad to state it. A 3-year from date of first occupancy, completion of phase 2, with that 3 years to be noted as less than the petitioner sought. So this board might consider an extension of that. Of course, who knows who's going to be on this board in 3 years? You know, we all could be off of it by that point, except for Mr. Needs. And
I don't think it was a life sentence, Mr. Chairman.
okay, that the petitioner comply with design review recommendations as the latest recommendations were made, that lighting be consistent with the renderings that we've seen, that there be rear deliveries only. You know, I don't know if FedEx pulls up in a van that they might not deliver an envelope. I'm talking about goods and materials that are being delivered to the rear, not to the front, and that those parking spots be reserved or preserved for the public potential customers and the like. And that we reconfigure the phase 1, phase 2 renderings that we most recently got to include that the landscape around this new building will be done in phase 1 as opposed to the way I'm looking at it being phase 2. And I think Jan and I are on the same page. You just merely extend the red line down. So just give us a revised plan that shows us that. Those things with those conditions, I know I could support. And if anybody who cares to have any more dialogue on this long considered petition, please let's do it and hear it quick.
Mr. Chairman, Mark Rills, Building Commissioner.
Sure.
In reference to the tree in front of the post office, I believe that during the special permit review and site plan review for the 606, 610, the first building you've already granted relief for, that island that projects from the front right or to the east of the post office, there was a tree proposed there. And I believe that the fire department requested that it not be planted as they had a tower truck ahead of and in front of the post office. And they didn't want that ladder they didn't want the tree in the way of their ladder. So we had to plant a tree in that place.
So Mr. Martin, would that satisfy you with that kind of fire department's concern?
Yeah, I mean, I would want the fire department to be happy with what's what, and maybe, I would think that maybe the tree could be pushed back a little further, but if not, and there's a good reason why it can't be there, then I can understand that.
Thank you,
Well, I know Mark's probably put more work into this than anybody on our board.
No, look at Kathy. Thank you.
Mark certainly did his share too. So instead of 4 trees, 1 being in phase 2, it would now be 3 trees, 1 being in phase 2, and 2 in the location cited by Mr. Martin on those 2 islands near the building 7 or the new construct. Any other discussion anybody wants to have before moving along? All right. Is anybody prepared to make a motion, please? I can only hope.
Yes, I am. I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I propose that I make a motion that we approve the petition as requested with the following conditions. And do you want me to go through those conditions that you just spoke of?
I saw council taking them down, each one as I spoke, and since she's going to draft the decision and I have all my notes, I will assure that those are all appropriately in there.
Can we discuss at all one of the conditions from the applicant's side, or are you not taking any more of ours?
No, you go ahead and address them, but we're going to move it along to a vote pretty quick.
I have a concern with the 3-year condition. One, as you noted, the board members could be different in 3 years, and despite a note, suggesting that the board, give due consideration to any circumstances, they might not care about that. And second of all, if there are going to be, I think it would be helpful to have some concrete reasons why it should automatically be extended, such as financing concerns, such as things like that.
Sure. So let's speak to automatic. It's not, I couldn't support automatic, but I certainly could support a statement that says will be done in 3 years, subject to a 2-year extension should finances, legitimate financial concerns require.
Or for other good cause shown.
Well, but that's other good cause shown is always a reason for an extension of a permit or permit requirement.
I would like it to say for financial reasons or for other good cause shown. It still gives the board discretion, but it gives us some flexibility. 3 years is really not a long time.
Does anybody care about that change to that condition? Okay, so let's make that change to that condition as a part of Mr. Igo's motion.
So who's writing this down?
I'm
Well,
writing it down.
I've got them down, and I saw.
Okay, so we're gonna, because we're gonna need to hear these back, so we're all clear on the record here, because after the decision is written, unless we're all gonna prove it before it's signed, which I don't necessarily want to do. Okay, so the conditions, we went over the handicap space. We're all aware where that's going to be, to the right of building 7, correct? We're going to have a handicap space. The sidewalks in the driveway in the front of the main building, that will all be flush, correct? There will be no raised sidewalks. That was what was represented last time. Is that still correct? Anybody want to answer that? Brian?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Just so we're clear, the sidewalks and the driveway in the front of the main building are all flush. They're all at the same level, correct? There's no raised curbings anywhere there?
No, from the sidewalk immediately adjacent to the building is flush.
Right, that's the one I meant. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, the building in phase 1 will be finished completely in the rear with landscaping. All the hardscaping will be completed, correct?
All the hardscape immediately to the rear of the building, yes, in phase 1.
All the way, and all the hardscaping from the rear of the main building, from Winslow Gray to the post office and south to 28, all of that is to be completed in phase 1, correct?
No.
As shown on the phase 1 site plan. I would reference that directly, because that's the plan of record.
All right. There'll be customer parking in the front only, no commercial parking in the front. The lighting is to be contained within the site, and the lighting will be consistent with depictions on the plans that you showed us last time. The petition will be in compliance with the design review recommendations, except for any changes that were made by this board that are contrary to those recommendations. Then our decisions will supersede them. Rear deliveries only. I mean, I don't know that you're gonna have a bunch of trucks out front anyway. I'm presuming you guys can handle that. It will be gravelled in the rear of the building during phase 1, as represented by the plan you showed us tonight, with the parking spaces. Now, they don't have to be drawn out, but you show where they're going. I don't know that you're gonna spray paint the gravel. I don't think you're gonna bother to do that. It's Cape Cod, you park where you park. But it'll be as represented, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We went over the plantings that Dick recommended. You're in agreement with those, except the ones that are in front of the post office may or may not be planted because of the concerns of the fire department. Trees in all of the other areas that we went over to the right of building 7 on the south side and to the north of that, in those islands, we're going to put trees, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I personally, and I won't make it a condition right now without discussion with the board, but I would recommend that we require a 15-foot strip of asphalt from the rear of the building going northward from Winslow Gray Road across to the post office. And I don't know how you're gonna, I almost think you have to, if you're gonna complete all that hardscape, you're gonna asphalt through there anyway. I'm not sure where it's gonna end. But you're gonna have to do it anyway. That way, if we never did phase 2, that building would look finished in my mind. You'd have a bona fide driveway in the rear. I don't know that I said 15 feet. It was kind of an arbitrary number for asphalt.
May I?
It could be less than that, but I think to ensure that this building looks finished after phase 1, because if you just put gravel back there, gravel gets dirty, gravel looks sloppy. To me, it doesn't look like it's finished. But for what they're putting in for money for this building, it really should be. And I don't think it is that cost prohibitive to ask for that in the scheme of what they're doing here.
Mr. Igo, may I?
Who's ever asking, may I please? Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to explain there's some engineering tied into the paving. We have to do drainage that needs to go underground. We need to put in catch basins and so forth, and curbing. So it doesn't make sense to pave this area because there's infrastructure that needs to go in, which will be a part of phase 2. So we don't want to jump the jump the gun on this.
You kind of raised another issue right there. So the back of the building now, you're saying is not going to have any drainage or any dry wells?
It will be graded. It's all the storm water just goes to the back of the parking and just naturally goes down.
Isn't the building commissioner going to require you to have some type of dry wells in the rear of the property in phase 1?
Yes, we did discuss that, and also Brian, if you want to chime in on this, we do want to take care of that storm water in the meantime between the phase 1 and phase 2. So there's no issues, there's no puddling and so forth. But we don't want to pave because there's some additional like I said, structures, they need to go underground, and we need to grade the property so it will actually function. So we can't just put, pave the strip and then we have to tear it out.
So you're telling us that where I'm suggesting that paving's going to go, that you're going to have undergrounds there? Do you have a plan that shows the rear of that you can show me right now?
The engineering plan, or?
Yeah, in the rear of the building, so you can show me that if I ask you to put pavement right there right now, that you're going to have to tear it up in the future because something's going underneath it.
Can I speak to that just for a minute? You're concerned about this condition, Mr. Igo?
Sure. I mean, actually, it's a condition for the board. It's not really for the petitioner.
So you're talking about a 10-foot strip or a 15-foot strip,
yeah.
And you've got a flow of traffic that could be two-way back there. And so really what it would have to do to facilitate two-way traffic, Mr. Grillis can tell us how much needs to be paved, but I suspect it's something greater than 20 or greater. And so now we're essentially paving the back parking lot and doing away with phase 2, the concept of phasing that rear development. Because what's going to happen is people who don't want to sit at the light, some may enter that paved area there and try to go down and go out that exit out to Winslow Gray Road, as they would formerly do in the front of the property because of the second curb cut. Conversely, if they want to avoid the light and having to wait to go out on a 28, they're going to go in that Winslow Gray curb cut, and as a practical matter, come out and turn on, make a right turn only there, if that facilitates because traffic is moving on 28. So you're going to have a pattern of two-way traffic. You got to have something a lot bigger than 15 feet. And once you get beyond 15 feet with curbs and everything else, you're talking about them essentially being required to do phase 2 and phase 1. So
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Who's talking?
Mark Grills.
Sure, Mark, go ahead.
May I address Mr. Drago?
Sure, of course.
In regards to paving, number one, there has been a lot of discussion about who potential tenants might be. So with a restaurant, you have a specific type of septic system. With hairdressers, you have a specific type of septic system, and with a general, mercantile type store, you have a different type of system. And there's been all types of potential candidates, including a pizza shop, hairdressers, attorneys' offices, things of that nature. So to prepare or to install these septic systems pre-pavement would be, not very cost effective, first off. So they're trying to, right now there's still a bunch of balls in the air that they don't know the answers to. So I think making them spend the money on the paving, which according to our bylaw, section 301.4.3 requires that there be 2 travel lanes, 10 feet each in width. So that the width of the paving would be 20 feet. And I think once there is occupancy, I think there won't be as much opportunity for people to jump the lights driving through that parking lot. Right now, there's nobody there and nobody thinks twice about it.
Yeah.
While we're on that subject, I do want to ask a question. Where is the proposed septic going right now in phase 1? Anybody?
Right.
It's the same as phase 2. It's all the same septic.
So you're not going to put the septic in until phase 2?
No, that's going in phase 1.
Where is the septic in phase 1?
If you're looking at, I don't know, do you have any plans in front of you, or?
You can just tell me where it's going.
It's in the north central portion of the property.
North, behind the building?
Correct.
So that will be going in phase 1.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I was going to say, I'm sure there's going to be bathrooms in there. I don't know there's going to be restaurants, but your Mark does raise a good point. You don't. Okay. I mean, I can live without it. I'm really making a suggestion for people to just digest. I don't know that it's make or break. Were there any other conditions that I have from the board members that I've missed?
Yeah. Is it an annual review or annual review? Either one or the other.
I think we should have an annual. I think we should have an annual review of this property from the issuance of the building permit until the beginning of phase 2, and maybe one after phase 2 is completed.
And so, Ms. Campus, on this language about 3 years, except for good cause shown, including financial hardship, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think Haya commented, if she's allowed to speak too, she'd feel more comfortable with 4 years. We're not trying to push the envelope here or, ask for something we don't think is reasonable. We just need the time.
Okay, so my 100% charged iPad, which is a fairly new one and has a good battery, is now down to 10%. If we can't finish this within that 10%, I need to take a break so that I can go down and get my battery extended life attachment and keep it going. Can we do it within the next couple of minutes, or do we need to spend a lot more time delineating the conditions that I thought I had articulated? But and again, I don't even know that anybody's in agreement with the 3 versus 4 versus 5. It still seems to be a matter of contention, and it's going to take us half an hour or so. Does that seem likely? And if so, I'm on a break.
I'm ready to go.
Get my battery charged.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go on what
And I don't think that we need to negotiate with the petitioner
Yeah.
as to how long that's gonna be.
We're gonna pass, we're gonna take a vote, we're gonna issue them a special permit and they can,
Leave it.
take it or leave it.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that. We always like to negotiate, but I think we've negotiated long and hard through meetings.
It does, one final thing, it doesn't really make sense to me to meet with you guys once we get the building permit. That could be in a couple months. I don't,
No, I think you said within 1 year of it had occurred.
oh, after, 1 year after the,
Yes, yeah.
gotcha, sorry about that.
Yeah, and then annually thereafter until completion of phase 2.
Okay, so just so we're clear on the language on your condition, Steve. We've got that down. It's, what did we say, 3 years? He's gone. Jeannie, what do we agree? No, I better not ask you. You'll say it's 4.
No, she wouldn't.
No, we said 3. We said 3 from the issuance of the first occupancy
Yeah.
permit.
And
Three
and
from
to be
the, 3 from final occupancy then.
no, because we can't do no, because you may never reach final occupancy. No, that's from the first building permit. That's what my condition is in my motion.
Quite honestly, I don't know if this is a breaking point for the client or not. I kind of need to talk with her about it.
Let me, before you say it's a breaking point, let me just make one comment. I've been on this board for a long time. We have had dozens and dozens of people come to the expiration of a special permit who couldn't do what they said they were going to do originally. They came before the board and asked for an extension. I can never remember a time where we even considered saying no. So if you come to us in 3 years and say, look, we don't have the finances, we don't have enough places rented, we need more time. I don't care what the makeup of this board is. I'm confident in saying, I believe that this board is going to say, okay, we'll give you 2 more years. But on the flip side of the coin,
I don't think we can guarantee that.
we can't guarantee that. I'm just telling you, I would not put that in as part of the condition. But I just say, opposite that, what Dick brings up is you're asking for all of these extended years out from what may happen. We need to see this thing move along. All right. We've never done really anything in phases like this. Normally,
Yeah, I think it's been said so eloquently by Dick. We don't need to negotiate. And the negotiation.
That's right. Yeah. Let's just stick with what it was. I'm just giving you my opinion, though. Okay. I think you could probably go to sleep at night knowing that if you had to come back to the board, that we would work with you. We work with everybody. We try to say yes on every petition, not no. And I think I can say that broadly for the whole board.
I appreciate that. I do just have a client in another town though, who went to get an extension and they denied it. So I have that.
That could happen here too.
It could happen here too.
Could, and she's invested a lot and she's put a lot of time and effort into this and.
So wait.
And
we're not getting a return.
I think it's reasonable. I think 3 years from.
I just need to ask her if she wants to move forward with the 3-year condition. That's all.
I'm ready to vote, Mr. Chairman.
If she doesn't,
And if she doesn't, it's a no vote for me.
Well, then we might move to withdraw. I just need to ask her, and unfortunately, this isn't very conducive to that. If you want to let her speak.
You should have planned to be together tonight then.
She's in Israel, sir. I can't really plan for that.
Hey, let me ask you a question. How about this? How about 3 years from 50% of the completion?
It's 3:22 in the morning by me. And 3:22 in the morning by me.
You should be in bed.
Well, I'm interested in moving forward, but I also
as are we
want to feel pushed as I do right
Neither
now.
do we.
But who's pushing you? I've given you everything. I've come back every single time with everything just about that you have asked for with reason.
Stop for a moment, please, because the 5-year from date the 5-year proposal was made and revised today as a sort of trade-off for the changes that you did agree to make. And that was never discussed with us as being the new end-all to the quid pro quo. So this is why we can discuss it tonight. And you are absolutely right. No one wants to make you feel like you are not giving you a chance to present whatever you want to present. But I'm telling you, it ain't going to change for me on this topic. And I see Mr. Neitz, and I'm not going to speak for Mr. Neitz, but I suspect it's not going to change for him. So therefore, the vote's not going to carry.
So you're
If that be
talking
true.
about, so you're talking about 3 years from the date of first occupancy?
Yes, and with a statement within the decision that for good cause shown, however that wants, if you want to add for such as finances or whatever, that's fine. But for good cause shown, it would be extended for up to another 2 years.
Could that period be told during the state of emergency?
No.
Aren't existing permits already told during the state of
Well,
emergency?
maybe we should question whether the 2 new bridges over the canal are gonna be built too. I mean, come on, we're either gonna do it or we're not gonna do it.
Yeah, I mean,
if
I gotta
could
tell you, at
say-
least as for this evening, my patience is run. I haven't eaten breakfast and I'm tired.
And I mean, when we say from the first occupancy permit, I'm presuming this is not a very big building. I'm presuming you're going to basically get almost every occupancy permit at the same time, aren't you?
It would seem that way.
If you're telling me you're going to build 1 unit and wait till it rents out to build the second unit out, then I don't know where you're going, because this is not a big project. It's a relatively small one. All occupancy permits should be issued almost at the same time if you're building it all at once. You would have from that date 3 years to complete phase 2. I would think in 3 years, you're either going to be going or you're not. So I don't really think that 3 years is a short period of time. I think 3 years is a long period of time. So I would ask the board that we close this and unless the chair wants to entertain any further comment and we move the question.
Well, let's talk parliamentary rules. A motion is on the floor made by you, Mr. Igo, with stated conditions, including those stated or suggested previously in the discussion. And that motion has not yet been seconded. It needs to be seconded and we need to move it along to a vote. Again, the discussions, as far as I'm concerned, are over. Okay. Once a motion is made, it no longer is going to be a matter of discussion. So the motion has been made. Does anybody need to hear me
Mr. Chairman, I'll
reiterate
second
the
the motion.
condition? What?
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Martin seconds the motion. Let me state the conditions that are spoken of, that are included in this motion.
You just need to get a letter.
Do you need to speak to your, I don't want to be speaking over people. We've been through this before in this meeting. So
That's not highest speaking, sir. I think it's some background noise from Dick Martin.
yeah, I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just saying that I'm hearing people speaking in our background and I find it hard to speak over those. So planting, look, we've said them time and time again. Attorney Campus, do you need to have me recite them? Okay, so there's a motion made and seconded with the stated conditions by both Mr. Igo and myself, which includes the 3-year time frame for completion of phase 2, except for good cause shown, or however you would feel comfortable with that wording, which I'll review and edit if I feel appropriate. On that motion made by Mr. Igo with the stated conditions, seconded by Mr. Martin, does the board care to have any further discussion before proceeding to a vote? Hearing
I would
none.
like to, all I would like to say, Mr. Chairman, is should this matter be appealed, that I do believe that the petitioner does meet the criteria contained within the bylaw. That it will
Oh,
not
sure.
be more substantially detrimental, it will not cause any undue nuisance, hazard, or congestion, and will not,
Derogate.
and strict enforcement of this bylaw would certainly represent a hardship to the petitioner. So having said that they meet the criteria, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And the criteria for the grant of a special permit is implicit in our findings, of course. And so on that motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Mr. Martin, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Oh, roll call, excuse me. Mr. Igo,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Nicanello,
Aye.
Mr. Needs.
I'm sorry, aye.
And Mr. DeYoung is an aye as well. That carries unanimously. I'll look forward to receiving a draft decision for review and edit. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we have no other business on our agenda, and so I say good evening to all of you and all at home that are interested in our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mr. Chairman. Thanks
Thank
all.
you all.
Bye.
Yeah.
And thank you, Ms. Rose.